I hope yesterday's homework quiz went okay for you with the absolute values. That is a tougher lesson with breaking those apart, so please make sure you let your teachers know if you're struggling with that. We are now looking at lesson A8, solving literal equations. This is Mrs. Thompson. The standards are listed here, and in your textbook this would be section 2.5. If we are looking at what you should be able to do in this lesson, I can solve formulas for a specified variable, and I can solve multi-step linear equations, including equations with coefficients that are variables. So first off, what is a literal equation? A literal equation is an equation that involves two or more variables. So a formula is a special type of literal equation. It states the relationship between quantities. Common formulas are listed again in your textbook, page 110. They include formulas such as the area, circumference, distance, temperature, and other ones. So what you are going to be asked to do is rewriting a literal equation. So in algebra, it's very important to be able to manipulate variables in an equation. It is especially important to be able to solve equations for one variable. We will be practicing that today. So in this equation, notice it has x's and y's. That's a linear equation, and we are asked to solve for y. If we are doing that for this equation, we want to get the y by itself. So how do I start this problem? I'm going to have 10x plus 5y equals 80. My first step is I want 5y by itself. Sometimes I'll circle what I want by itself. I'm going to subtract 10x from both sides. And notice I don't put the 10x right below the 80. I kind of put it back here. Sometimes I'll have students put it right below, which you can, but these are not like terms if you remember our like terms. So here we end up with 0. We are left with 5y is equal to 80 minus 10x. Now, what does it matter if I put negative 10x plus 80 or keeping it this way? It doesn't matter. I then want to divide. I like to show it as dividing each one term individually by that coefficient of y, which is 5. This leaves me with 1y, which is what I was trying to get. 80 divided by 5 is going to leave me with 16 as I'm taking a look at that answer. So I get 16 minus 10 divided by 5 leaves me with 2x. Could I have written it this way? Y equals negative 2x plus 16. That would also be correct as you are taking a look at that answer. I cannot change this to be 2x minus 16. So just be really careful about how you're writing those solutions, okay? So both ways will work as I am looking at that. As you are looking on the top of the next page, we are now on page 24. So as you look at page 24, as I look at page 24, it asks me to rewrite, and I'm looking at a literal equation. It says I may need to divide by a variable or variables in expression. So when you do this lesson, assume that the variable or variables in the expression is not equal to 0. Remember, this is key because division by 0 is not defined. So if I am looking at this equation and the question is I need to solve for a, that means I need to get all of my, if I am thinking about this, I need to get a totally by itself. So it says, how can you solve a literal equation for a variable? Key thing is treat the variables as if you're not solving and thinking of constants. So my first step when I look at this equation is I am going to get the ax by itself. So what do? I had to add bx to both sides. You might want to show that. Again, you could have c plus bx. Next step, I want to solve for a. So if I'm solving for a, my second step is going to be divide everything by x. Now, what's nice about this is this first term here is going to simplify just like here it simplifies. So my answer can be written one of two ways. A equals b plus cx is going to be our most simplified form. I will have sometimes where I will have students ask me if they could leave this answer. A is equal to bx plus c all divided by x. And you could, but it is not in simplest form, and we really would like you to get in the habit of putting things in simplest form. Again, pause the video if you need to. We are now looking at the bottom of page 24, and if you would like to try doing these on your own, pause the video. This is what we would do if we were in class teaching the lesson. Pause the video and then try and solve it. So solving for m, I'm in a circle. I want 2m by itself. Again, pause it if you want. I'm going to add 5n to both sides of my equal sign. As I do that, I might put 5n plus 4 is equal to 2m. And some of you sometimes like to put the variable you're solving for first. So could you rewrite it this way? Yes, same thing, right? Now we want to get the m by itself. I'm going to divide by 2. And again, I like dividing each term by 2 so that my solution is m equals 5 halves n. Could you change it to a decimal? You could. Plus 2. So if we are looking at that, the other way that sometimes you'll see this written is when we are taking a look at this solution, you'll see it all divided by 2. So I would take this either way, where you have the 4 plus 5n all over 2 or simplified form. Again, pause the video and try this next one. I am going to do this one also for you, but pause it if you'd like to and try it on your own. Subtracting r from both sides. I get negative r minus t equals px. Could again someone have px equals negative t minus r? Again, just making sure your signs stay with it. We are then going to divide everything by x. And in this one, it definitely does not make sense to put each thing over x because you cannot simplify. So now when we solve, we would be looking at, again, negative t minus r divided by, oh, do you guys see my mistake that I did here? I wasn't catching it. I was going really fast. I was thinking of solving for p, but what we actually want to solve for is we want to solve for x. So instead of dividing by x, I need to divide everything by p. Oh, good thing I caught that. Sometimes you will make simple little mistakes like that too, so just watch and make sure you're always checking those answers in the back of your textbook for today's assignment and in your workbook answers. That's where you're going to use your sticky note and ask a question if you're not sure. As we look at this last page of your notes today on page 25, we are going to use a formula. So the formula is for the circumference of a circle. Circumference is equal to 2 pi times r. That's our original formula. So what we want to take a look at is if we wanted to solve for r. So our first step, we are going to divide both sides by 2 pi. Now remember, 2 pi is 2 times pi. Pi is just an irrational number. You would use your calculator for this. And if I wanted to look at what the radius is equal to, I would now say radius equals circumference divided by 2 pi. Again, if I'm talking fast, pause the video, go back and take a look at this. So now we are asked to find the circumference of 64 feet and 22.5 feet. What that means is I'm going to replace the word circumference, the C, with 64 and 22.5. And again, I am just going to show you on your calculator how you're going to put this in. So when you use your calculator, make sure, if you are looking at this, that you might be putting in the 64 and you're going to put divided by, and in this case we're dividing by 2. And this is where you got to be careful because 64 divided by 2, I might put that. Now I'm going to divide one more time by pi, which is 3, and I get a solution of 10.1. So when you are looking at this 10.18, that's the solution that I would look for here. Now, someone said, well, what if I'm putting this in my calculator and I put 64 and I put divided by 2 times pi? Well, your calculator is going to give you this answer, because if you look at my process, and I'll show it one more time, 64 divided by 2, that gives me just that answer. And if you wanted to use the 2, you really need to go back and put in, if I was going to clear that, I'd put in 64 divided by and use parenthesis 2 times pi and back parenthesis, and then it gives me the same correct answer. So make sure you're putting these in your calculator correctly. Pause it and try this one. And again, if I'm pausing it and looking at this one, I would put my answer, and we would also like you to label these. So if I was looking at this answer, the first one would be, as I looked at that, I would have 10.2 feet for my radius and 3.6 feet for my radius. Your last page of notes, again, I would like you to try and do these on your own. You might look up that area formula in the back of your book. Area for a triangle, what would be the height if the base is 8 and 24 inches squared? So area, and we're given the base. So first thing we want to do is use that area formula. Again, if you need to pause the video and try it on your own, do it. If not, take a look at how I'm going to do this. 1/2 base times height. Now sometimes some people will use 0.5, and one of the things that I like to do first is get rid of that fraction. So if I'm eliminating the fraction in my work, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to start out with. When I multiply by 2, 2 times 1/2 leaves me with base times height, and I have 2 times capital A, the area. Capital A stands for area, base, and height. I was asked to find the height, so I'm going to divide by B in both cases. Not going to make the same mistake I did earlier in the video. So now I know height is equal to 2 times capital A divided by B. Now I'm going to substitute in my information. I know 2 times 24 inches squared, divided by, in this case, 8 inches. Keeping in mind that this 24 inches squared means inches times inches. So if I'm looking at that, one of those units cancel. My final answer should be in inches. I'm going to take 2 times 24 and I'm going to divide that by 8. When I take 2 times 24 and divide it by 8, I find that my height is going to be equal to 6 inches. 48 divided by 8. Again, could do that without your calculator. Here we give you the formula for Celsius, 5/9 times the Fahrenheit minus 32. We want to first convert the formula so that we have what F is equal to. Again, that fraction, eliminate it. So I am going to multiply to eliminate the fraction by its reciprocal. The reciprocal of 5/9, I'm going to take 5/9 times C is equal to 9/5 times the 5/9, parenthesis, F minus 32. Now what that does, when I multiply both sides by 9/5, this becomes 1, right? Multiplying any number by its reciprocal is leaving us with 1. So on this side I am left with F minus 32 is equal to, and sometimes that 9/5, people are going to write that as 1.8c because it's a terminating decimal. Okay, I now want to still get F by itself, so I am going to add 32. Now again, these are not like terms, so F is going to equal, I like to put my Fahrenheit first, what I'm solving for, 1.8c plus 32. So as I look at that, that is going to be my formula that I am looking at. And again, sometimes you're going to see people leave that with the fraction in it. And other times you are going to see many of us that are going to write this answer, and you might see it in the back, with 1.8c plus 32. And again, both of those would work. This is where your assignment is tonight. It's in your textbook. And you are doing questions on page 112, 11 to 17 odd, 22 to 25, and 37 to 41. The first 4 questions that you're doing, this 11 to 17, you are asked to do this. First thing, solve for y. This should bring you back to solving for y last year when we did linear equations. So we're going to get the y by itself, and then you're going to replace it. So I'm going to give you an example of what your answer might look like on your notebook paper. For number 12, you would write down the problem. Once you've written down the problem, you would, right below this part, solve for y. So I would get 2y by itself by taking 8 minus 4x. I'm going to divide everything by 2 so that I get my first answer that you're going to see in your answer key, y equals. This one would be 4 minus 2x, but the answer you might see in the back might say negative 2x plus 4. Remember, these two are equivalent, they just switch the order. Why do we write it this way? Slope-intercept form. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to make a table of values. What values did they tell you to make for x? They said if x is equal to negative 2, 1, and 3. I now know that y equals negative 2x plus 4. So now I'm going to find what y equals. I'm going to put in negative 2 times the number they told me to use for x, negative 2 plus 4. I'm going to get that value for y. And these are the other three answers that you are seeing in the back when you look at this. So you see these answers and this when you look at that first question. Again, some of these other ones, look at your notes if you need to for extra help, and I hope this assignment made sense, and we'll hopefully answer some questions when we see you in class.